Parliamentary Secretary of the Minister for Finance.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And this nation has had 33 opposition leaders since Federation. We've just heard from the worst of them. 18 of those opposition leaders have become Prime Minister. God help us if ever that man becomes Prime Minister. Let's hope he doesn't. But I'll take him up on a few points. He talked about jobs. Well, let me tell him, as he scurries from the chamber, that job advertisement levels, as measured by the ANZ, are at their highest levels in over 2 years. Highest levels in over 2 years, with job ads growing a healthy 13.6% through the year, the fastest yearly growth in more than 3.5 years. More than 200,000 jobs were created just last year, 213,900. This equates to around 585 new jobs each and every day, or a new job every 2.5 minutes. In 2014, jobs growth was more than triple the rate seen in 2013, when Labor were last in power. The Dun & Bradstreet Business Expectations Survey, released on the 3rd of February 2015, found that the outlook on employment is the most positive it's been for a decade. Now, look, when I attended school, and that was a little while ago now, students were graded A to D for their prowess or lack thereof in education. Now, if I were marking the current government and opposition for their respective performance policy proposals during the 44th Parliament, I'd award us an A for effort. An A for effort. An effort, but I'd give a D to those opposite. An absolute D. Can I say the attendance record of those opposite has been pretty good? I hear the Deputy Opposition Leader saying, "Come on, well, you're only worth a D, but I'll give you marks for turning up. I'll give you marks for turning up, Deputy Opposition Leader. Their behaviour and attention, however, leaves a bit to be desired. But maybe you could improve on that as you work towards the next election. Maybe you could work on your discipline. In this game, you have to be straight down the line. Tell it like it is." And I acknowledge that there is much work for the government to do. I do acknowledge that there is a job to be done. We're putting our shoulder to the wheel, despite the relentless negativity and obstruction from those opposite. We've done very well in many of the key areas we said we would prior to the 2013 election. We have delivered. The carbon tax is gone. That means $550 savings to the average household, families. The boats have stopped. They came in their hundreds under Labor, hundreds. But we've stopped them. Just one has arrived since the responsible people were put in power. That has saved money. It's allowed more places for humanitarian purposes, and most importantly, Deputy Speaker, it's saved lives. The roads, as promised, are being built. Contrast our record with those who rightly occupy the opposition benches. Let us dig a little deeper into this dreaded D that Labor has deserved for its underachievement. In fact, D could be quite a theme for Labor. They are in denial. They are refusing to believe the result of the 7 September 2013 election. They are delusional, thinking they are still in government. I say to them, get over it. Get over it. They are divided and they are dysfunctional. The factional rift is still wide and it's growing by the day. The opposition leader is a puppet. He's a mere puppet played by the unions, and if anyone thinks the unions aren't up to their old thuggish ways, then just take a look at the front page of The Australian today. Bit of biffo, bully boy tactics, typical union tactics, disgraceful. It might have worked on the wharves once upon a time, but there should be no such room for standover militancy. I can hear them yelling because they love their unions in Australia in 2015, and the next Labor Speaker would do well to come to the dispatch box and say that that behaviour that went on yesterday was deplorable. Labor are disinclined to help this nation back to prosperity, back to economic stability, back to business confidence, back to jobs growth. Just take the scrapping of the East-West Link project in Melbourne by the new Daniel Andrews Labor Victorian government, a loss of $1 billion in investment, as compensation, and 7,000 jobs. We heard from the Treasurer today in question time. 7,000 jobs. This is typical Labor. Typical Labor. Labor are becoming increasingly desperate. They plumb the depths when in government, and they're no better in opposition with the member for Maribyrnong in charge. Deplorable. Disruptive to good government. Destructive. Disliked. Derelict in your duty to provide sensible, measured, reasonable, mature opposition, as we did when the Rudd Rudd government was sending this country to the wall, to broke. Labor treated Australians with disdain. The dilemma we face is to get Australia working again and to overcome the debt and deficit. Now, they're two words, I hear the member for Parramatta, they're two words that Labor should be very familiar with, two D words that Labor should be familiar with, debt and deficit. As far as the debts, $123 billion of cumulative deficits. And if we let it go untouched, it'll be $667 billion. $667 billion, which the future Australians are going to be saddled with because of Labor being derelict in their duty. Now, the contrast between Coalition's success after spending less than 18 months in government and Labor's legacy after 6 years in office could not be more stark. The Coalition is building a strong and prosperous economy and a safe and secure Australia. In less than 18 months in government, the Coalition has achieved a remarkable number of achievements. We're opening up new market opportunities for Australia following preferential trade agreements with South Korea, with China and with Japan, and we're getting on with one with India. Our focus will now turn to conclude a trade agreement, as I say, with India by the end of this year to open up more opportunities for Australian producers and exporters, farmers. I know that not too many people on that side really care too much about farmers, but we do. We are working to continue to deliver improved health and education services for regional Australia. Minister Nash only recently announced a new mapping classification system to better identify doctor shortages, which is working towards our commitment to improve better access to medical services in regional and remote Australia. And I appreciate that Parramatta is not regional and remote Australia, but I tell you what, those people matter. Those people care for these people on our side of the house. We're building a stronger regional economies because we recognise the vital role that rural and country areas can and must play in overcoming Australia's national challenges and driving development. The government has made a record $50 billion plus investment in transport infrastructure, the largest by any government in Australia's history. Now we know that the former minister, Minister Albanese, talked a lot about it. The member for Grayndler, he talked a lot about it, but Warren Truss, the Deputy Prime Minister, is getting on and doing it and funding it. We've launched our signature $1 billion National Stronger Regions Fund, currently taking applications to specifically support investment. They're very loud over there, Deputy Speaker, because they obviously like what I'm saying about regional Australia. I know not many of them have ever represented regional Australia, not many of them have ever cared about regional Australians, but I tell you what, they grow the food that's put on your tables. But anyway, I continue. The National Stronger Regions Fund will specifically support investment in priority economic and infrastructure projects to drive growth in the regions. We've committed to $300 million to get construction underway on the iconic Melbourne to Brisbane Inland Rail project. They talked a lot about it when they were in government. They had case studies on it and all this sort of thing. We're getting on with the job of doing it. We're getting on with the job. There's $100 million to address mobile phone black spots across the mobile phone networks in regional Australia, and that is so important. We've committed another $100 million for, well, you never provided anything. We're getting on with the job of actually giving it real money. Now, $100 million for rural research, $15 million to improve market access, $20 million for biosecurity and $8 million for safe, effective chemical access for farmers. And I heard the member for Maribyrnong talking about biosecurity. I mean, fair income. I mean, talk about hypocritical. That side did nothing about biosecurity when they had 6 years on the government benches. 6 years to do something about biosecurity, to do something about food labelling. What do we ever hear, Deputy Speaker? Absolutely nothing. Diddly squat, zilch, zero, nothing. We're getting on with the job of fixing the problems, absolutely fixing the problems. Now, under a range of programs contributing to building stronger regions communities, we are able to deliver $2.34 billion in water infrastructure upgrades for the Murray-Darling Basin. I hear them go silent because they couldn't have given two hoots about the Murray-Darling Basin, but I tell you what, we're legislating also to cap water buybacks to 1,500 gigalitres. I know that'll mean nothing to those sitting opposite. I know that'll mean absolutely nothing, but it gives security to our farmers, security to our river communities, and that is so very important. In our short term in government to date, we've managed to recommence and expand Australia's live cattle trade. So you can see all the good things that we've done. All your side gave to this country was debt and deficit, and that's why you deserve a big fat D for your performance. Thank you.